This was something to behold. Yesterday, a Senate Banking Committee hearing featuring Greg Becker, the former CEO of Silicon Valley Bank, included questioning by Pennsylvania Senator John Slingblade Fetterman.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Well, not really questioning, because if he was attempting to ask a question, it was indecipherable.
Is it staggering? Is it a staggering responsibility that the head of a bank could literally crash our economy? It's astonishing. That's like if you have, and they also realize is that now they have a guaranteed way to be saved by no matter how, So it's isn't it appropriate that this kind of control should be more stricter to prevent this kind of thing from going? Or should we just go on and start bailing and sailing whoever bank, regardless of how their
Make it stop.
conduct is? I'll give you an example. The Republicans want to give a work requirement for SNAP. For a hungry family has to have this kind of penalties or some kinds of working required. Shouldn't you have a working requirement after we sail your bank with billions of your bank? Because they seem to be more preoccupied than SNAP and requirements for works for hungry people, but not about protecting the taxpayers, that will bail no matter whatever does about a bank to crash it.
Oh, damn.
Sure.
I like them French fried potatoes.
I like them too, Senator.
Dan, that is tax papers. I mean, he didn't even know what he was saying.
He's tired of banks like Silicon Valley Bank being sailed out.
I know. It's so.
Congratulations, Pennsylvania residents. Congratulations, Pennsylvania Democrats.
This is a graphic reminder why you should not have early voting, because more than 1 million people cast their ballots before that debate between him and Dr. Oz.
I'm not sure it would have mattered, honestly. Not sure it would have mattered. I think, as we've discussed before, you have a preponderance, majority, supermajority of Democrat socialists who will vote literally for a potted plant with a D next to their name. And these blue states are getting bluer, and Pennsylvania is one of them.
But that's so embarrassing for John Fetterman. They put him in that spot.
I'm thinking if the big guy decides not to run again, I'm thinking a Die Fi Fetterman ticket for 2024. What do you think?
No.
We'll put that question to our friend Scott McKay. He is the publisher of the Hayride. He's also an editor at American Spectator and author of the Revivalist Manifesto. Scott, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Hey guys, good morning.
Morning.
Can I present you a little bit of an alternative to the Slingblade characterization of Fetterman?
Yeah.
Because when I saw this thing yesterday, what it reminded me of is Stephen Root's character in Office Space.
Milton.
Milton, the guy who was constantly convincing about his stapler.
Yeah. No.
He's Milton.
Well,
and eventually he will burn the place down.
He's going to burn down the Capitol, possibly.
Yeah, maybe.
I know when we talk about Fetterman, as we have had to from the campaign cycle to present, you have people, you're criticizing somebody who's obviously got a medical condition. No, I'm not criticizing somebody who suffered a stroke. I'm criticizing somebody and the somebodies around him that prop him up, that pretend that this individual has the capacity to do much of anything, much less be a public policy maker at the highest level.
That's right. When you submit a cacistocracy to the American people, the absolute minimum response should be ridicule. Absolute minimum. And I insist on the ability to ridicule John Fetterman. And Dianne Feinstein, who is 51.6% dead.
Well, she didn't even know where she was yesterday. She's like, well, I've been here the past 3 months. I've been voting. What? She said that yesterday. Like, you haven't, woman.
She looked good once they wheeled her out of the crypt, and she's ready to get back to work. Rested and ready to get back to work, just like Fetterman after his little sojourn at the beginning of the year.
Well, I mean, look, this proves conclusively, not that we needed any more proof, that there are no standards and no shame to today's Democrat Party.
No, go ahead.
Well, it's, and if you're an independent and if you don't like Trump's tweets, or if you, think that Kevin McCarthy is whatever species of poopy head that you may think, you need to at least stop and think about who the Democrats are inflicting on you. I mean, we just named 2 senators who are incapable of making complete sentences. And the guy in the White House, I don't know, I guess it was Monday. I'm listening. I'm driving around in the car and I'm listening to, I guess it must have been like a Fox News radio thing talking about the debt ceiling. And they had a sound clip from Biden that was utterly incoherent. You couldn't understand what he was saying. And what I got out of it was it wasn't exactly on point with what the report was saying about the debt ceiling, which tells me they included that clip not because it furthered the story, but because it was the most lucid clip they had of Biden. And then I watched the entire press conference, and I was right, because he is not capable of making complete sentences anymore. I mean, he is completely diminished from what he was a year ago, which was very bad.
I would pay money to see a Scrabble game, Biden and Kamala versus Fetterman and Di-Fi.
Okay. Guy, all right.
So, all
not
right,
a lot of double word scores in that one.
Not a lot of double word scores, no. All right, so Kentucky primary yesterday, the Attorney General there, long seen to be a rising star, Daniel Cameron, wins the Republican nomination for governor. This is an otherwise red state, but it's got an incumbent Democrat governor who's relatively popular, so it's not going to be an easy out. Trump backed Cameron. DeSantis came in late. I don't really understand why, to back Kraft, who finished third. First comment on Daniel Cameron and the chance to take back a governorship, and then second, as a proxy for presidential politics, does that tell us anything about where the presidential race stands on the Republican side between Trump and DeSantis?
Well, on the latter, I'm going to say no. I think it was a mistake for DeSantis to get involved in that. And it's not the first, nor will it be the last mistake that campaign makes. I think it's pretty obvious that this thing is Trump's to lose, but Trump could lose it. But as to the first, and I think probably more important part of this, Kentucky is a pretty good proxy for Louisiana, where I live. Both of them are red states who have had Democrat governors that have managed to stay somewhat above water on approval ratings, despite not being very good at all. Largely because, they're white guys who do most of their work sort of behind the scenes and don't get caught up in a lot of national Democrat politics. And in Louisiana, when John Bel Edwards was running for re-election in 2019, he was more or less dead to rights, but the Republicans ended up it's a jungle primary, so it's a little different than Kentucky, but the Republicans ended up putting basically a donor. Eddie Risponi's a big industrial construction guy who self-financed his campaign to the tune of like $25 million. But, God love Eddie, he didn't have a lot of political chops, wasn't a good public speaker. His campaign team was like out-of-state guys who knew nothing about Louisiana politics and basically just took his money and left him high and dry. And Risponi lost the election by only 40,000 votes. I think that Kentucky's situation is much different because Daniel Cameron is a legit politician. Daniel Cameron is a phenomenally good public speaker.
Yeah.
So far as I've seen, his message is very tight and very good. And then the other thing is 2023 is totally different than 2019 because, in 2019 you had, Trump was actually doing fairly well as a Republican president, but the left was mobilized out of hatred for Trump. Whereas now you've got Joe Biden, who in almost every way is sort of the opposite, other than that I think Biden is increasingly going to motivate Republican voters to get out. I'm not totally sure about that, but I think it in Kentucky, I think it could very well happen.
With Cameron, it was interesting, though, in his victory speech, he leaned into Trump. He said, my victory proves that, the Trump movement is not dead, or words to that effect. I'm paraphrasing. But he invoked Trump in a positive way. I thought that was interesting. And what does that tell you about where, at least where the race is in Kentucky?
Yeah, I don't think that Donald Trump is a problem for Republicans in Kentucky. I honestly, other than maybe a little Texas and a little Utah, I don't think Trump is a problem for Republicans in any red state. I think his representation of what Angelo Codevilla called the country class is still very much intact. And I think that formulation, the country class versus the ruling class, is as sharp now as it was back in 2010 when Codevilla first introduced it. I mean, I don't think any of that has changed. And I don't think that, for example, the Durham report that came out this week, I think that kind of locks this in place because you have people that are just still completely denying the facts of the Trump-Russia thing.
Right.
And that marks you as a member of the ruling class. And increasingly, I think those folks are hated. The real question is, will Republican voters galvanize around Republican candidates? And, this is an off-year election. I think you got state races in Kentucky, Louisiana, and Mississippi this year. And they're all red states, and we're going to see how – I think Republicans are going to win in all of them, but we're going to see how big those victories are. And that may inform to some extent what the landscape is like in 24.
But back to the Durham report, I mean, don't you think that this helps President Trump with his reelection campaign?
Oh, Cameron winning the primary? Yeah, I mean, how much, I don't know, but
the Durham report.
Oh, the Durham report. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I'm Trump, I am going to focus on the Durham report, to make my case that, hey, I was never this monster they presented me as. But I think the productive thing that he's got to do, if he's going to message that, is he needs to run on reforming or breaking up the FBI.
Yep.
Because
Bingo.
You can't. But people are going to talk about Trump dwells on the past. So it's important for him to say, all right, now there's no more of this denial of what I've been telling y'all all along happened in 2016. But here's what we're going to do with it. And he needs to have other examples besides his own personal story of why the FBI is problematic now. And I think if he can do that, then one of the things that you may hear objections about Trump can go away, which is, the guy is living in the past and it's all about him. Yeah. I think if Donald Trump is able to present to the American people and to the people who may have decided that I can't stand Trump, and some of these independent voters that are telling pollsters that they don't want to vote for him, I think if his approach is, more MAGA and less, they stole the election, I think he's got a shot. But it has to be, look, we're going to make some bold changes, and we really are going to dismantle the deep state because it's causing you as much pain as it's causing me.
Well, there are plenty of examples that he can lean on if he wants to make that case.
Yeah.
You're right about that. The comments you made about DeSantis's campaign, that backing that third-place finisher late was a mistake, and it won't be the last mistake they make. What does that belie something about your assessment of the DeSantis campaign?
Well, what I see of DeSantis' PAC, which, as I understand it, is run by Ken Cuccinelli. Like they got into this really dumb situation up in New Hampshire, where they were claiming endorsements from state legislators that they didn't actually have, and that ended up being a black eye for them. And that's all Cuccinelli, and it's a bad look. And then the other thing is DeSantis' record as governor of Florida is that he is very much what I call revivalist, a MAGA conservative, or at least MAGA adjacent. Okay, he's not a Karl Rove Bush Republican. I mean,
right.
A Bush Republican would never have taken on the Disney fight the way that Ron DeSantis has. And there's a great piece, I think it was yesterday at the American Conservative, called the Rat Catcher, and it was all about DeSantis' fight with Disney. And it's absolutely sensational stuff where he offers really, really good big picture justifications for everything that's been going on over there with respect to the Disney fight. And yet he's losing this to some extent in the public sphere, mostly because everybody else sees, I'll shill for Disney, and people will think that Ron DeSantis is anti-business, which is what Trump has done, and to some extent it's what Vivek Ramaswamy has done, and it's definitely what Nikki Haley has done. I think there's the Ron DeSantis that you see working in Florida, and then there's the Ron DeSantis that's sort of the national political consultant class is trying to make him. And the latter will get left by the roadside, just like Scott Walker was, and just like Marco Rubio was, and some of these other guys that on paper were really good candidates in 2016, but just never really took off. And I think some of that is an issue that we've seen over and over again over the last 25 years in American politics, is that Republican consultants are generally not very good. The message they come up with is generally it's very favorable to the donors, but the American people do not, it's not a big seller with the folks.
Yeah, they want to. If they vanilla-ize DeSantis, then he's in trouble. I completely agree with that.
I think they're already doing it, and it's pretty. I mean, as somebody who really saw a lot of promise in DeSantis, it's disconcerting. And I mean, his campaign team is Axiom Strategies. It's Jeff Rowe. I mean, Rowe is good, and yet this is kind of ordinary, same old type of stuff. With a guy who's better than that, I mean, if Todd Aiken is your candidate, I understand, just running, boilerplate campaign messaging. But I don't understand it with DeSantis, who actually has some talent and is convicted and has principles, and yet he sounds like John Thune trying to run for president too often.
John Thune, watch it. But when is he even going to even announce? I mean, when's the date?
I'm sorry, say again?
When is he going to announce that he's running? I mean, he hasn't even made it official yet.
Well, they passed that. I don't know if it was I guess it was a resolution that said the resign to run statute.
They changed the law. Right?
Did they actually change it, or was it just an interpretation of current law that said this doesn't apply to running for president? Either way, I guess the way is clear for him to get in. So I would imagine maybe as soon as that legislative session in Florida ends,
it's coming.
He'll get in. But he's got a high mountain to climb because the rollout has not really been that good.
Scott McKay, publisher of the Hayride, contributing editor at American Spectator, and author of the Revivalist Manifesto. Scott, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Dan, Amy, have a good one.
Thanks, you too. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
Gather the kids and get ready for a fun children's storytime adventure with Benjamin Green, the Happy Grasshopper, a new children's book available on Amazon. Join Benjamin as he ventures outdoors for the first time and